Welcome back to Savage Showdowns. This week we will be returning to the battle arena. This week in the battle arena, we'll have potentially our two largest combatants of all time, the Paleoloxodon and the Paraceratherium. But first, if you like this content, please give it a like and consider subscribing. It's free and it really helps the channel out. First up, let's look at Paleoloxodon. Size. Paleoloxodon was a group of related elephant-like creatures with the largest growing to be 14.5 feet tall and weighing a scale-breaking 18 tons, though estimates do vary up and down by individual. Just as a demonstration for the variation within the family, one of the smallest members grew to less than a meter tall, or just above the hip height of most humans. Strength. There are no definitive estimates for the strength of Paleoloxodon, but if we use modern evidence from modern elephants that can lift their body weight and exert several hundred pounds of force with their trunks, as well as charging, we can reference that the Paleoloxodon likely could lift almost 30,000 pounds and likely exert almost 1,000 pounds of force with its trunk, if not more. Speed. Paleoloxodon likely could not exceed speeds of 10 miles per hour, although studies are in constant fluctuation. Stealth. Once again, assuming similarity to modern elephants, Paleoloxodon could likely walk quietly thanks to the pads on its feet. That said, it would be difficult to hide its body from visual senses. So, at a distance, it would be safe, but very noticeable if one gets close or has a clear line of sight. Weapons and armor. Paleoloxodon's weapons consisted primarily of its large size. A creature this big could do serious damage simply by stepping on you. In addition, it could wind up a charge that, despite its slow speed, could produce incredible amounts of bone-breaking force. In addition, it had a trunk that could perform some higher motor functions or throw small objects, and finally, it had massive tusks that could grow over 12 feet long and, backed by the charges stated previously, could deliver lethal blows. Its armor likely consisted of strong bones and a thick hide. Modern elephants can already stop small caliber bullets, so a creature this large was likely quite durable. So how does the Paraceratherium stack up? Size. The Paraceratherium, or Pararacer, was a large, hornless rhinoceros that stood roughly 15.5 feet tall at the shoulder and was an impressive 24 feet long thanks to its impressive neck. It was also incredibly heavy, weighing in at roughly 22 tons, but will this extra weight help it in this fight? Strength. It is difficult to find many metrics for the strength of Paracerers, although some estimates claim that it could lift 25 tons and was capable of delivering powerful kicks and stomps. It could also likely swing its head around to generate high impact forces, similar to modern giraffes, which also have long necks. Speed. I cannot find any exact metrics for the Pararacer's speed, mostly just notes that it was likely quite slow but had high stamina. With this in mind, we will put it equal to the Paleoloxodon and say that its speed was 10 miles per hour. Stealth. The massive herbivore was likely not stealthy. Again, similar to Paleoloxodon, it may have had foot pads that helped it hide its stealth at a distance from sound, but this behemoth would have been quite visible at close range or if one had a clear line of sight, such as on an open plain. Weapons and armor. The weapons of Paraceratherium consisted primarily of its size. It would leverage this to scare off most predators, and if that didn't work, it could kick or stomp those foolish enough to attack it to death with relative ease. There is also some speculation that it may have used its large incisors when fighting members of its own kind in a sort of biting or stabbing maneuver, though this is unconfirmed and debated. The armor of Paraceratherium was entirely dependent on its large size and likely thick hide. These would provide defense from basically any attacker it would face within its own time period. So, those are our two Titanic contenders. But who wins? Let's find out. I will preface this fight by saying that two large herbivores such as this would usually get along, or the fights would be more territorial disputes that end peacefully or quickly with little serious injury. For our fight, this will not be the case. Our arena will be an open grassy plain with occasional interspersed trees. Our two towering herbivores are both looking for food and water in this desert of grass, both nearly starving due to the drought. Eventually, from opposite directions, they stumble upon a small oasis of green grass and a small watering hole. Neither wants to share with the other. Threat displays begin, both trying to scare off the other, both too desperate to be scared off themselves. Eventually, it becomes clear that neither party is backing down, and they begin to move closer. The Paraceratherium is larger, but it lacks the weapons of the Paleoloxodon. It'll have to be careful about those tusks. The Paleoloxodon charges as it gets closer to the Paraceratherium, who whips its head into the Paleoloxodon, utilizing its long neck. The impact temporarily stuns the Paleoloxodon, who takes a few steps back. The Paraceratherium doesn't waste this opportunity and gets around to the side of the Paleoloxodon, where it begins to push and bite its opponent. Unfortunately, the Paleoloxodon's wide base allows it to stay balanced and upright despite the large creature's pushing, and its dense hide prevents the teeth from doing any serious damage, although they are painful. The Paleoloxodon whips its head around, leveraging its weight, and squares up with its opponent, who is out of options, but for fearing starvation, cannot run. The Paleoloxodon again charges, and the desperate Paraceratherium rears up, hoping to stomp the Paleoloxodon somehow in a desperate maneuver by leveraging its larger size and height. The Paleoloxodon lifts its tusks and impales the Paraceratherium as it comes down. The Paleoloxodon can lift its own body weight, but the Paraceratherium is several tons heavier and drags the Paleoloxodon's face to the ground, nearly breaking its tusks in the process. However, the Paleoloxodon then removes its tusks from its opponent and claims its reward in the small oasis of grass and water. Paleoloxodon wins, its weapons being able to overcome the size difference between the two, with Paraceratherium not having any weapons of note beyond its size. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Feel free to suggest any future fights you would like to see. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next Savage Showdown.